Hello everyone and welcome to the second part of our October-November series for Paper 4 Advanced Practical in Information Technology. This video is meant for candidates who are preparing for their Cambridge A-level exams. And our focus will be on task 3, which deals with animation. I've added a link to the source files in the description so that you can download and follow. So without wasting time, I'm going to start my Adobe Animate software as I read out the question. Task 3. You are required to animate the path of the Earth around the Sun. Set the stage to match the size of the background GIF image. So to set the stage to match the background image, I'll advise you first go to where the file is located, and you can get its dimension by just hovering your cursor over it. Here it says 900 by 480. So I'll head back into Animate, go to File, New, and where it says width and height, I enter 900 by 480. I'll leave the frame rate at 30, platform type action script, and click on Create. I'll now go to File, Import, Import to Stage. And we will locate our background image, background GIF, and click on Open. And it fits exactly on the stage as required. You can now head into the Layers panel, double-click, and rename it to Background. Now we are to use the Earth and axis images in our animation. The Earth and axis images must follow the path shown in background. The animation must start at the affluent point shown and travel at an even rate around the Sun. The light side of the Earth must always face the Sun. And since the background is not going to be moving, I'm going to click on the padlock here to lock it down. We can now create a new layer for our Earth. And with the layer selected, we head into File, Import, Import to Stage. Select Earth. I'll now move it to the affluent point here. And rename the layer to Earth. Let's go ahead and create a new layer. With the layer selected, we head into File once again, Import, Import to Stage, and I'll select Axis. And I'll move the axis into place on top of the Earth, just the way it looks on the question paper. Let's go ahead and rename our layer to Axis. We need to create another layer for the guide that our Earth and axis will follow. I'll double click and rename that as guide, or let's call it path. And to create a path, we will need the oval tool. So I'll head to the tools panel and pick the oval tool. Head to my right where it has the properties and make sure it has no fill, but it has a stroke. Choose a stroke color that will contrast the background. I'm choosing white. You can maintain the stroke size as 1. And then we draw an oval randomly on top of background like this. You now pick the free transform tool, select the layer, and rotate it till it matches what is on the background. You can use the free transform tool to resize it if it's out of size. And to move it, you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move it into place. It is advisable at this point to save your work, at least save the working file. I'll name mine Orbit. And I'll head into Path, the Path layer, right click, and click on Guide. The icon by the side changes to a hammer. Once again, I'll click on the F layer and select the free transform tool and ensure that the anchor point of F is clipped to the guide, like this. Should be on the guide. I'll not be needing the axis now, so I'll place the axis on top of path. Select F. And to avoid selecting axis by mistake, let me hide it for now. Let me hide axis. And I'll drag F beneath path like this, so that it clips to the guide. I can use the rotation on the corners to ensure that it is facing F correctly. It is facing the sun. Now let's head further down the instructions and see what it entails. These are images of how the F and the axis must make an orbit around the sun. And here it says the text shown must appear as the F passes each point. The text must be formatted to match the text in the image. The animation must take 8 seconds for the complete orbit. The animation must then restart and loop continuously. So let's head into 8 seconds on our timeline. Unlock background. And make a selection of all the layers on 8 seconds. And insert a keyframe. We can lock the background again. Bring our playhead to 0 or the first frame. Select the F layer. Right click anywhere on the middle of its clip and create a Classic Tween. When you have the symbol warning appearing, just click OK. I've included a video I made on motion guides, giving a basic explanation on how this works in the description of this video. So if this is your first time seeing this, I'll urge you to go and watch that video first and come back so that we continue. Now, since we are going to divide our movement into 4 parts and we have 8 seconds, each movement will take 2 seconds long. So I'll move my playhead to 2 seconds or 60 frames, select my F with the free transform tool and move it to this point. I also need to make sure the white part is always facing the sun. So I'll click and rotate like this. In so doing, our first keyframe is formed on the 2 second mark. Now I'll move to 4 seconds. Let's move to 4 seconds or 120 frames. and move our F to this point, perihelion. Once again, I'll rotate my F so that the white part faces the sun. Then I'll move to 6 seconds or 180 frames. And I can move my F this way and rotate, make sure it's still facing the sun. And when we move to 8 seconds, the F itself will move back to its original position. Now, you may ask, why didn't I use the axis lines as my point of reference? Now, if I should drag my F here, this might seem correct because it will be halfway through from here to here. But if I bring it here, it's not halfway from this point to this point. So that's why we brought it this way. Now, from this point down to this point, I need to find halfway, which is somewhere here. And you may ask, why didn't I place it here? So if I place it here, what happens is there will not be an even movement, because the F will need to return to its original point within 2 seconds. When it gets to this point, it will move faster than when it started moving. So you have a slow movement from here, and then when it gets here, it will speed up, which we don't want. We want equal movement. So let's go to Control and Test. Test in Animate. So we have an equal movement and the white always facing the sun. We will now go ahead and repeat the procedure for the axis. First, I'm going to enable it so that we can see it. Then I'll place it on top of F and under the path, and make sure it is clipped to the guide. Then we can right click anywhere on the clip of the axis and create a Classic Tween. When the symbol warning appears, once again, we just click OK. And we head to 2 seconds. This time around, we select axis. And move it along and make sure it's on top of the F. But we will ensure that it's not rotated. Then we move to 4 seconds and move the axis to follow the F. Move to 6 seconds. Place the axis accurately on the F. And from 6 to 8, you realize that it will follow to the end. Once again, a quick test. And this is what we have. We now need to add the text as the F reaches each of the 4 points. So let's make a quick referral to the question paper so that we see the text we need to add. So let's head back to our first frame. Move to 2 seconds. Create a new layer on top of the path layer and insert a blank keyframe. I'm going to pick the type tool. Ensure that the text is Times New Roman. We can make it bold and change the fill color to white. We can begin by typing the text here. Equinox 23rd September. We can rename the layer Equinox 1. To create some distinction. And create a new layer on top of that layer. Now when F gets to the next axis point, which is this place, here, we need to add another blank keyframe. So add a blank keyframe. Pick the type tool once again. And type solstice 21st December. We'll create a new layer on top, but before then, let's rename it. I'll name it to Solstice 1. Okay, so it's saying special characters are not permitted. So I'm going to cancel that. Rename it again. I can say Sol_1. And then we move ahead. Drag your playhead as F goes. It gets to the next axis point, which is this place. And create a new layer. Insert a blank keyframe. Pick the type tool. And this time around, it's going to be Equinox 21st March. We can rename the layer to Equinox 2. Now let's drag our playhead to the last axis point here. Create a new layer. Insert a blank keyframe once again. And that is going to be Solstice 21st June. I hope I got the spelling right. Let me zoom in. No, so I'll pick the type tool and do the correction. I. So let's test our animation. Control, test movie, test in Animate. So if you are satisfied with it, we can now go ahead and do our export. Let's check how we are supposed to name it. Orbit. And we are supposed to save it or export it as an animated GIF. So I'll head into File, Export. Then I come down here and select Export Animated GIF. You normally don't need to change anything here, provided it's showing GIF. So all we need to do now is click on Save. Can select the appropriate folder and name it Orbit _ followed by your center number and candidate number. Then click on Save. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. And until we meet in the next video, it's bye.